So let's talk first about where does regularly scheduled maintenance fit in. So with our vehicles, that would be things like your oil change, your brakes getting changed, and that's a more longer term thing than your oil change. But your brakes getting changed, new tires, things like that. How often do we need that regularly scheduled maintenance is something you should be asking yourself, and then you should be preparing to pay for those things. And we've talked before about sinking funds. Well, you should have sinking funds set aside that you put money in slowly for car repairs, right? Not a lot of money each month, but a little bit of money, and then when you need things like this, you can just dip into those sinking funds and take the money out. So that's something that obviously we should be preparing for, regardless of where we are in the financial action plan. If you own a vehicle, you should be budgeting in always the regularly scheduled maintenance that you are going to have to do on that vehicle. And then the same thing goes with your home, but your home's a little different. There's different things that you would have to do that are regularly scheduled maintenance. But in the same way, just have a sinking fund set aside that you could pull from if you need to do some of that regularly scheduled maintenance. And the fact that it's regularly scheduled, you should know approximately how much those things cost and be prepared and budget out correctly the amount that you would need to put away slowly to have that amount whenever it comes about. If you're having your oil change twice a year maybe, then that's going to be I change mine and my wife's oil, and that's maybe a $25 job maybe per car. So I know that 2 cars twice a year, that's about $100 per year I need for that. So that's not a big amount, but that's something I need to be prepared for because if you get to a month and you have to do, let's say, both cars that month, so let's say it's $50, that may be an issue for your budget. Then what about the things that are unforeseen, right? The unforeseen issues that come along throughout, and they're sure to come along, these unforeseen things, like let's say there's a leaking roof and you didn't expect that on your home. Let's say your transmission goes out in your vehicle and you need to do transmission, and we know that is not a cheap thing to do. So where does that fit into the financial action plan? So something that is unforeseen should fit into the plan in the following way. So let's say you have already built a small starter emergency fund, but maybe you're trying to get out of debt or save money or something like that, save up an emergency fund. But let's say you've still got that starter small emergency fund and you've got a leaky roof. Well, the likelihood is that you might not be able to cover the cost of a new roof if you just have that starter emergency fund. And similarly, the likelihood is you might not be able to cover the cost of a new transmission if it went out on your car. But I would say with 1 month of expenses, you should be pretty close for most people to being able to cover that. So that may actually be covered. But you should first look to your emergency fund, right? Now, I don't want you to just immediately turn your head there, but I'm saying if you don't have any other money to deal with. Something that you might want to do is the following. Let's say you are in a place where you are paying off your debt. Well, what I would do is maybe that month I would just pause and I would pay the minimum payments on everything. And I would try to cash flow from what I was going to put extra on debt that month to pay on the leaky roof or the transmission or whatever it may be. So I may press pause just for a short period of time in order to get that thing taken care of and still have my emergency fund set aside, because we know if we take the money out of our emergency funds, what we're going to have to do is replenish that emergency fund. So instead of having to do that later, just pause, cash flow whatever's going on, and then restart the plan either later that month or the next month where you were at. Because let's be completely clear, too many people quickly turn to, I don't have the cash, I'm going to finance it. Because you can finance all of these unforeseen, bigger repair things, and we don't want to be in a place where we have to do that. Because let's be honest, there are things that could occur that are extremely costly. Things with your home, your plumbing, your foundation, the big things that could be extremely, extremely costly. And maybe you're not in a place to cash flow that just yet. So that can be a big issue, but that's why we want to walk through the financial action plan and get to that point where we have 4 to 6 months of expenses sitting aside and we're able to cover just about anything that's thrown our way. So if you're already in that place, then those big things, even though they're going to stink, it's going to stink to write that check. Then at least you had the money laying around that you could pay for the things in cash. The problem is if you're in this place where you just got this smaller emergency fund and you're paying off debt and you get this huge thing that you must do, then that can be a big problem. But if you have to, and this is not a thing where you didn't throw any money at it. I'm talking about, you threw everything you had in your emergency fund at it. You cash flowed as much as you could. But if you have to add debt on in some way, then you just need to get that as a part of your debt repayment plan and attack. Try to get through those debts as quickly as possible. That way you can get to that point where you have 4 to 6 months of expenses adding up to go ahead and have that emergency fund setting aside to where if something like that were to occur again, then you don't have to worry about it because you've taken care of what you needed to take care of.